What is up, everyone? My name is S6W1 and this is something new. This is the first power ranking for the UPA ever. The way we're gonna do this, every week I will be doing the power rankings, and every week I will have a guest coach with me to present the coach list which they've made together. This time
That's me.
Okay.
Sorry, that's me. I'm Michael. I coach the Kansas City Cherim, and also I was a Season 3 champion. It's important.
That's a while back though, it's Season 6 already.
Yeah.
But let's just jump straight into this, right? My number 16 would be the Baltimore Orioles. Main reason being, they lost their first game 6-0.
Yeah. The coaches had the same number 16, and Ben did really well his first season in the UPA, but it's getting to the point where his team building is just so predictable, where basically he just likes to run Volt Turn, but he doesn't like to run optimal Volt Turn. So, for example, he'll run Volt Switch Mew against someone with Lightning Rod instead of U-Turn.
You know, and another thing I noted was how he over-predicted twice on the Palisand. While I was like, okay, this guy is staying in with a Palisand, so on a Rotom Cut, so he probably has got the Rindo Berry, and then a couple turns later, the item got knocked off by something else. But he basically sacked his Rotom Cut to a Palisand, which is a 1v1 matchup that, well, you shouldn't ever lose. But the opponent, Helsinki HJK, didn't necessarily have that many switch-ins to Rotom Cut, so they probably built their team as many individual mons could beat the Rotom Cut, but he overpredicted twice in a row, and it cost him dearly where he lost his Rotom Cut.
Exactly, and Ben has a bad habit of not making safer middle ground plays. He either attacks what's directly in front of him, or he overpredicts like crazy. So he needs to do kind of a better job of making plays that maybe are predictions, but are safe predictions, instead of going full risk.
Last note I had was more of a question. Is Mew Minium Z prohibited in your league? Because I was looking at the rules, but it wasn't there. It said to be added.
I don't think it's banned. I don't remember voting on it.
Because he brought Psychium Z on the Mew, while and the opposing Mon lived on 2%. But as soon as he would have had Minium Z, then it would have definitely died there because it's a lot more powerful. So that would maybe also a note to just, well, think about. But maybe he didn't bring it because it's prohibited, but I really don't know. Moving on to number 15, unless you have something more to say about this.
Nope, that's about it.
Okay. So my number 15, and also happens to be the coach's number 15, is going to be New York Semipores. Not as big as a loss as the Baltimore Orioles, but still a 5-0 loss is pretty significant.
Yeah, and I think probably my biggest criticism by far was bringing the Mega Medicham, because most things have trouble damaging Necrozma, but Mega Medicham especially is pretty notorious for its poor coverage. So it wasn't going to be really doing anything in this match.
It did turn out that, well, Necrozma did take a lot of damage from all these special attackers, and there was a lot of pressure on Necrozma throughout, well, the majority of the game, because Necrozma had to take a lot of hits. However, well, the pressure apparently wasn't enough, because Necrozma could get up rocks, could, well, keep on moonlighting. And, well, that's the other thing with Necrozma, right? It only gets 8 moonlight, so it's reasonably easy to stall out the amount of moonlight, so, and then Medicham could perhaps do something, but because usually Mega Medi, you can about bring it every week because it does so much damage in general. But yeah, I'll agree with you that, well, against Necrozma, it's kind of useless. Another note I had was that the New York Semipores were very hard-hatted on staying in with the Chandelure on the Emboar. Fortunately for them, though, it ended up working out, mainly because they got a special defense drop on the Emboar, so the Heika Luchas were forced to kind of predict the round with Sucker Punch, and that ended up like getting Chandelure behind his sub. So that were a couple of good plays that he made. Unfortunately, he could not deal with Manaphy at all. Well, he didn't necessarily. I checked on his team. He didn't necessarily have anything for the setup Manaphy for Tail Glow Manaphy. Maybe P2, but that would be about it. And I think, judging from the damage, that P2 probably was offensive.
Yeah, I think what he probably needed to do was run a Scarf Manetric. Or sorry, does he have Mega Manetric? My bad. Does he? I'm sorry, I'm very unprepared.
Didn't you say that he just had Mega Medi?
Oh yeah, my bad. So yeah, he probably needed a Scarf.
The Manectric was Specs, because it
and I think
did a lot of damage.
He probably needed to bring Scarf, and while Z moves are kind of hard to predict, Z Rain Dance Manaphy is pretty notorious for being overpowered, so that's probably still a little bit of an oversight, or a pretty big oversight, on the Simipour's part.
Yeah, well, I mean, not prepping for one of the biggest, well, offensive threats on your opponent can dearly cost you, and that's exactly what happened. Maybe he could have even brought something as Life Bar just to encore it into setup, or, well, Scarf Cortana, which he has on his team, would have also not necessarily been a bad bring, especially since it does more to Necrozma, and, well, it outspeeds +1 Manaphy.
Yeah, I'm questioning whether or not he might not have even thought about the Z Rain Dance Manaphy, which I mean basically is what cost him, because other than that one oversight, his prep was pretty solid. But yeah, that one oversight,
yeah, I kind of felt bad for putting him that low, because up until that point, he didn't even play bad. He didn't necessarily play a bad game. However, while overlooking Manaphy and while getting 5-0'd, while I don't have any knowledge about this player whatsoever, I kind of had to put him in a 15th spot. But, well, yeah, his prep for the rest of it was alright. So,
yeah, that oversight was to be ignored.
Let's hope we can put him higher, next week. Next up on my list will be the Boston Braviaries, and I do think this is the biggest difference I have with the actual coaches. Yeah, because they have them ranked at 11. I got them at 14, so it's a three spot difference. But reason being is I don't necessarily think they played really well, and I don't know anything more about all these players, because just about everyone in this league is new for me. So maybe the coaches use previous experiences, but I don't have any, so I just have to base off this one single game. But Boston Braviary is number 14. So the Gudras do get a crit first turn, which mattered unless Hariyama had no speed, no HP, or no Spadef investment, which I find hard to believe while using a Hariyama that you don't have it. And even if it had no HP and no Spadef investment, then it still was about a 50-50 roll. So the crit definitely mattered, but I thought it was really odd that he even stayed in, because as soon as he would have switched, the Hariyama was the biggest offensive threat to the opposing team. With Close Combat and Poison Jab, he was able to hit the entire opposing team really hard, and probably for, well, the majority of it for super effective damage as well. So, and he had a Mega Aggron, still, well, not Mega yet at that point, but which is a solid switch into whatever Swallow set you will bring. So the first turn, even though he got critted and the crit mattered, it was generally a bad play that he actually stayed in on that.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I think the crit was probably part of why the coaches ranked him a little bit higher, just because it's so hard to watch someone stay in thinking this is perfectly safe and then get crit and lose differential because of it.
Yeah, that's true, but like his Hariyama was, after that he really struggled with wall rain. Admittedly, it's odd to see wall rain do well, and I've never seen anyone draft it, but it actually worked, and it actually put in the work. But then I had another known Braviaries where they just keep in their Zapdos for no reason on Alola Ninetales when Aggron this time Mega was still very healthy and it resists both stabs that Ninetales has got. So I didn't see any reason to just sack your Zapdos right there because Zapdos did really well that game and he just let it in on an Alola Ninetales when he had a perfectly good switch. So there were some, in my opinion, very questionable plays that he made to start in that mid game, so which cost him dearly, and they were really unnecessary. So that's why he's my number 14. So guess we're moving on to the coach's number 14 then.
All right. The coach's number 14 is Ice Demon Gray and the Barcelona Bagons. Actually, pretty much almost a unanimous number 14 too. So I'll let you go first because I'm nice like that.
Well, the Barcelona Bagons are my number 13 spot, as you can see on the screen. They used an Incineroar as a Volcarona check, which I thought was quite creative. Unfortunately, Volcarona eventually ended up setting up, kind of in their face against the Tapu Fini. But they managed to crit the Volcarona, which really lessened the differential, because otherwise the Maryland Manchas would have probably won with a bigger differential. So that's why I don't have them all that high. I don't think they necessarily played terrible, but the differential would have been bigger if they didn't get that crit. And it really looked for a long time that they were about to luck out due to that crit, but then, Pyukumuku just kind of stepped in and was like, no, you're not getting his win. But I'll talk about that when I get to the Maryland Manchow.
Yeah, I would imagine the reason he's ranked so low, and definitely the reason I ranked him so low, is because the loss would have been so huge without the crit. And even with the crit in their favor, they still lost 1-0. So there's not too much to say about it. It wasn't great prep or play. It would have lost without that, really heavily without that crit, and then after that, the other team still managed to outplay them.
They basically got a game-changing crit, and I don't recall if they actually choked the game away or whether Pyukumuku was just a god. But yeah, that was your number 14, my number 13, and I guess your number 13 is up next.
All right, my number 13 is Zuby and the Zimbabwe Zoroarks. So, just a second. Oh yeah, and they were playing the Rosmal and Rose raids. I really liked the Focus Sash Nidoking. I thought that was actually really good prep because Nidoking, even without a Life Orb, could basically two-shot every single thing on the opposing team. I actually not sure I agree with them being this low because I thought it was overall pretty solid. The big thing is they needed to preserve Reuniclus, and they just didn't. And I think that's a lot of the reason that they lost.
Yeah.
And also, no Protect on Mega Dino was really weird.
Yeah, that did seem odd. But yeah, at the start of the game, Zimbabwe Zoroarks had a really good start. They put a lot of pressure on the opposing team with the Nidoking. And they pulled out the Fire Rim Z with the Shiinotic. But at the end, they just kind of lost to Buzzwole with Xurkitree.
Yeah, exactly. It's really hard to counter that Beast Boost overload that the Rose raids have.
So, Zimbabwe Zoroarks are my number 12 then. Yeah, basically what I just said, like the start of the game was really good. They put so much pressure on with the Nidoking, and then they predicted Shiinotic to be the wall for Electros, and they just caught it off guard with a Fire Rim Z Flamethrower, I'm assuming, because I don't think Electros gets Fire Blast. But so they had really solid prep, but at the end of the day, yeah, the Beast Boost overload was just kind of too much. Even though they did counter the Xurkitree really well, because Xurkitree also used Z Rain Dance to get the +1, and then they just then the Zimbabwe Zoroarks set up a Trick Room with the Reuniclus and ended up killing the Xurkitree like that. So all in all, I didn't necessarily think they played bad. But since, well, as I said before, I don't know much about these players, so everyone who's lost is, well, bottom 8, everyone who won is top 8 currently. So that's how we're gonna do it. So you're number 12?
Our number 12 was Nick and the Why Not. And I actually have, I thought, I can't say too much bad about him because he's in the same room as me right now.
Okay.
But the Why Nots played really, really well in the early game. I really liked the prediction of Talonflame coming in, going for the Sludge Bomb. The only big thing that I feel really cost him the game was continuously body slamming the Melodic, because not getting the paralysis was a gift, and then he just kept going till he got the paralysis. And if that had not been the case, basically when Infernape came in for the first time, it just swept everything on the opposing team.
Kill every single time he came in, but due to the fact that Melodic's Marvel skill was activated, it could actually nom those hits from the Infernape. Yeah, that's true. That's something I noticed as well.
And so that was kind of a small difference between being the number 12 spot and being the number probably 3 or 4 spot.
Yeah. So going on to number 11 then, I guess, unless you have something more to say.
I guess one last note is Will-O-Wisp being the Magearna was a little bit questionable. Probably should have either switched and stacked something else or just gone for damage on it, because the 6% wasn't going to do a whole lot.
Okay. Well, my number 11 then would be the New York knockoffs. And this battle started off. So you can talk alongside really, since it's your number 10 anyway. But both players started off reasonably strong. I mean, they traded for Latias for an Alolan Muck. So I kind of think that, well, whoever sacked their Alolan Muck to the Latias, well then they kind of want to trade, because, well, Latias obviously is a tier 1 and then Muck is probably a tier 4, I'm assuming, or maybe tier 3. But the New York knockoffs opponent, they had no switch-ins for Porygon Z, and then they let it get revenged by a Toucannon, which I thought was odd, because, well, the New York knockoffs had 2 very solid switch-ins to Toucannon, being Donphan and Rotom Wash. I mean, it could go for Bullet Seed, but it was super risky to just leave in your Wincon, because, well, the opponent had no switch-ins to PZ at all.
So I have a few comments. I was the other player in this match, and the Toucannon revenge kill was actually an unfortunate crit, because he was max HP Porygon, which means that had it not crit, it would have survived.
Okay, well,
but I think the biggest thing on the knockoffs part, there are 2 big things on the knockoffs part that really were not great prep. The first was not having Giga Drain on Mega Venusaur.
Yeah, that's
which wasn't
noted. I mean, like,
it wasn't terrible.
Half your team was weak to Giga Drain, so 3 out of the 6 mons were weak to Giga Drain. And so it really seemed odd.
And then the second thing was, firstly, bringing Keldeo, because obviously Jellicent is the best Keldeo counter in the game. It's immune to both stabs, but then also not bringing Hidden Power Grass on Keldeo. So basically, the Keldeo was their win condition, but they had no way to kill the opposing team's wall with it, or even touch it at all.
Yeah, exactly. And then also, like, didn't even bring HP Grass on Keldeo, well, fine, but, like, also not even bringing Giga Drain on a Mega Venusaur to even damage to Jellicent. So Jellicent was basically your win con from the start on, well, almost then. But that cost him dearly, and that's yeah, why New York knockoffs are my number 11. I guess you can talk about your number 11, man.
Alright, our number 11 was Brendan and the Boston Braviaries. So we already talked about him, correct?
Yeah, we already covered, but maybe you had something to add to it or not.
I don't think so. It's kind of hard for me to tell where he should actually be. I mean, I don't think he actually played that poorly, but I think the crit turn 1 might have put him on tilt a little bit because he was expecting to get rid of that Swellow turn 1, which honestly I don't think is the worst trade in the world because Swellow was just such a huge threat. So that's about all I have to add to that.
Yeah. Okay. Good. My number 10 then would be the Why Nots. So I have them a bit higher than the coaches do. They played against LA Clefable, and this is somewhat the only person I'm familiar with in this. Well, one of the couple that I'm familiar with, and overall they played a really solid game. The Why Nots looked like they had the right mons to wall all of LAC's teams, Los Angeles Clefables team, where the LA Clefables would really struggle with an offensive croak. So the Why Nots seemed to have all the checks in place and brought the right mons, but I kind of underestimated the bulk of Serena really, but I'll talk about that as soon as we get to the Clefables. Where it actually turned out that for the Why Nots, Roserade was the biggest threat, which got a free switch every single time on the Milotic. Wait, are there 2 Milotics?
No, it's just we talked about this a little bit earlier with
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. Okay, I was. Yeah. But eventually the Roserade did turn out to be the biggest threat, and it got a free switch on a Melodic every single time, making it free to either click Giga Drain, click Sludge Bomb, and they predicted the Magirna switch really well to just neuter it with a Sleep Powder, so that was great. So Roserade actually put in the work, but eventually they just couldn't beat the wall core that the LA Clefables had, or well, eventually they couldn't even. Eventually they had nothing to kill Serena, even though the LA Clefables made a quite unnecessary sack with Clefable. I mean, probably your best switch in would be the Magirna, even though I do think that the LA Clefables predicted an HP fire, but even then it was kind of unnecessarily risky. It was really early game as well. He wasn't behind or anything, so he didn't have to make risky plays. But yeah, that's why the Why Nots are my number 10. So I guess we'll move on to our number 9, I should say, because we have the exact same number 9, being the Seattle Scizor.
Yeah. So, and I'll let you go first.
So one thing I noted on the Seattle Scizor was Gligar took a ridiculous amount of ice hits, which it's quite weak to. Admittedly, it was for 2 of them were from a Dunsparce, but also Icy Wind from Jirachi, which was pretty respectable. Gligar showing its actual true bulk in this game. And then the Heat Wave miss on the Jirachi with the Tornadoes, it looked really big, and eventually I think, well, yeah, it probably was really big. Because it came down, the entire match dwindled down to 1 roll on the Water Shuriken, whether he would get 2 or more. Being more, Seattle Scizor would lose, and otherwise Seattle Scizor would win this game. So I do think had that Heat Wave hit, Rachi would have died a lot earlier and he could have had more pressure, and his Tornadoes could have been more useful throughout the rest of the game.
I think it's also worth noting, though, that part of the reason that the Seattle Scissors are the highest-rated losing team is because they also, not only did they lose to the role of how many times Water Shuriken would hit, but they lost to a minor prepping error, which was that Mantine was intended to have Water Absorb, so it would have been an easy switch into the Greninja, yeah. But instead it had some other ability.
I'm somewhat assuming that even after the 25 health bonus, Dark Pulse still would have killed it, but I'm not completely sure.
I'm also not sure if do you get multiple health boosts from water shuriken since it hits multiple times?
I don't think so. No, I don't
Uh,
think so. But
that would be really cool.
That would be interesting. But also somewhat OP then. Well, yeah, for one predict, I guess. But so Seattle Scissor, they may have, they could have won, probably could have won the game had the Heat Wave not missed and had he not screwed up his Mantine set. But the battle was really close, and so that's why he's the highest of the losing teams of this week. So moving on to my number 8, then that would be the Green Lake Gudras. Green Lake Gudras, even though first off, the first turn, once again, they basically sacked their Swallow, because Hariyama would have lived that hit, Swallow would have been gone, but they kind of got a lucky crit. They went for a really early setup with Minior, when Aggron was still a very good amount of HP. And then they instantly had to switch out, so I do think that probably trying to get off damage on something just by hitting it would have been better. I really did like that they put a Babiri Berry on the
the Minior,
so it could set up more easily. So I don't necessarily think they played a great game. I kind of think that, the first turn hacks, and then also their opponent just sacking their Zapdos. I think the win was somewhat more handed to them than they actually had earned it themselves. So that's why they're my number 8.
See, I agree with you having the Green Lake Gudras in the number 8 spot. I think some of the other coaches rated them a little bit too high. And part of the reason, there's a few reasons. One you already mentioned is that they basically sacked Swallow first turn, even though it had a huge offensive presence. And also, I thought some of the sets were kind of questionable. The Tapu Bulu set in particular had no way of actually dealing damage to Chestnut. So if Chestnut had brought, say Spikes, it comes in and sets up a layer of Spikes every time Tapu Bulu is out for free. Yeah. Now, luckily for him, the opponent didn't bring Spikes, but it seems like an oversight, especially when Tapu Bulu gets, the stab Dazzling Gleam, if he had brought that to hit the Chestnut. I also agree he set up too early with the Minior, I think both times, which tells me either the opponent brought a weird Mega Aggron set, or that he wasn't doing calcs to see if he could actually kill the Mega Aggron.
Yeah, because I really think that should have killed, right? Because the Minior was at +4, and the Earthquake didn't even do 40. So it was really, I know it's still a Minior and it's still a Mega Aggron, but it looked really pathetic.
Now, granted, I did like the Ice Shard Alola Ninetales. Yeah, I wasn't quite as surprised.
Yeah, I didn't even know I got that until I saw
I wasn't as surprised as most people were, but it was still really, really solid prep, which most people, don't counter or don't think of. And I also really like the Walrein set. I thought that was excellent prep.
Yeah, which was
Super Fang Brine.
Because I've never seen anyone use Walrein effectively. I've never actually seen anyone bring a Walrein, so it was very fun to see a Walrein being brought, and also, seeing it put in work. So, your number 8 then?
Our number 8 is me, Michael of the Kansas City Cherim. So, I guess I have a few notes on myself. I was kind of bummed that I lost the Latias early to the Poison Touch, because I actually could have kept it around otherwise. And I think probably the big reason that people have me fairly low is because of Toucannon crit, which is actually funny because I didn't want the Toucannon crit. I wanted a free switch into Mega Diancie on the Porygon Z to bait out the Mega Venusaur, but that didn't work out. Overall, I don't know. I thought this was a pretty good game. I don't think it wasn't one-sided at all. I think probably the biggest criticism I have for myself is that I might have played too safely at the end, because I realistically could have made this a 2 or 3-0, but I didn't want to get a prediction wrong or get crit and lose. so I probably could have preserved differential better towards the end, but I don't know, I just have a tendency to play safe.
I wouldn't do that either. As soon as you have a safe win, then you should probably, as soon as you have a guaranteed win, then you should probably, take the safe route instead of trying to risk something that's very unnecessary. So I do think that the endgame was fine in that regard. And your Mega Diancie stat did end up working out because, well, as we mentioned, the Venusaur did not have Giga Drain, so you could very much 2-hit KO the Venusaur there with the Psychic. Another note I had on the Kansas City Cherub is they are my number 7. They brought a very surprising 2-cannon stat, which turned out to be Scarf. I don't think the opponent predicted that. Fortunate crit, I must admit, but as Michael just mentioned, he didn't even want the crit. He just wanted to safe switch into his Mega Diancie. Are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay, good. But yeah, so that's why they're my number 7. It didn't have necessarily any noise because this game was, well, reasonably close, and there weren't necessarily that many super outstanding plays, nor super bad plays. I think most plays that were made were very middle ground plays.
Yeah, exactly. It was a pretty standard game overall. Nothing too spectacular, either good or bad.
So, well, you're number 7 then.
All right. Our number 7 is Jack and the Maryland Mienshous, which I think is critically underrated this week. Because, like we said earlier, they would have had a pretty big win had it not been for the crit on Volcarona.
Yeah.
But also because I really liked the way that he played with Pyukumuku, basically coming into baton pass, taking a free hit, and then baton passing out. I also really like the counter to hit the physical attackers, and not to mention even after the crit, they just played so well. Even a little bit of a switch up, even a little bit of a slip up could have cost them the Pyukumuku and then cost them the game. So it was just really outstanding play, which that crit would have put a lot of people on tilt, but it did not put them on tilt, which I thought was really good.
No, if it did something, it made them even play better, just to try and still pull this game out of their ass, even though, well, they were they got a very unfortunate crit against. So I'll talk about the Maryland Mienshous as soon as we get there. I have them a bit higher up my list. Number 6 would be the Ross Malin Roserades. I have a couple of notes. They played against the Zimbabwe Zoroarks, which we already talked about. This match was really good on both ends. The Zimbabwe Zoroarks really had the first couple turns of the game. I think the first 5 through 7 turns. Zimbabwe Zoroarks looked very much in control. Putting a lot of, doing a lot of damage with Nidoking, and then also killing the Shiinotic. But the Rosemelon Roserades came back very good in the second half of this game, where they put an amazing amount of pressure with the Buzzwole, and the Buzzwole actually ended up getting a late game sweep. Circuitry doing what, Circuitry kind of can do. Maybe Tail Glow set would have been better, but I like the Z Rain Dance plus Thunder. Especially also when you can, get a 30% chance to paralyze the opponent. That's obviously a really good thing to have on the circuitry. But all in all, I do think that mainly Buzzwole Buzzwole is definitely the MVP of this game, because, it put really great pressure on the opponent mid-game, and then, it ended up getting, I think, the last 3 kills. So, all in all, Buzzwole is, Buzzwole can be really happy with his performance this week.
Yeah, I have a few comments on the Roserades. I think they did not prep heavily enough for Nidoking, and they had a few good switch-ins on their roster, like Goodra is something they could have brought, or Rotom Heat. So basically, the Nidoking lead, rather, they had no switch into. I'm also kind of questioning leaving Skarmory in on a Nidoking, but it might just be that they really had no other switch-in. And I guess the last note I have is I don't like to be one of those people who says, oh, you should have run this, but I can't see a reason that Z Rain Dance was better than Z Electric Terrain, because Z Electric Terrain Thunderbolt is actually going to hit a lot harder with the 50% boost.
Mm-hmm.
So there might be something I'm missing, but I feel like it would have been a little bit of a better set. There might be something like maybe they wanted Buzzwole to take less damage from fire moves. I have no idea. But I can't see any reason that they would have brought Z Rain Dance over Z Electric Terrain.
Z Electric Terrain also gives you the +1 speed boost, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. So, well, your number 6 then?
Our number 6 is Lucas and the Green Lake Gudras. Like I said before, I think they're rated a little bit too high, but I guess I can see why some people rated them this high. They had a fairly solid game, and they pulled out a decent win. I don't think there's too much more to say.
No, we covered most of it anyway. So going to my number 5. My number 5 for this week would be the Dallas Staryu. I do think the coach have them up a little bit higher, but that once again might be due to previous experiences. The Dallas Staryu brought a Dunsparce. I mean, bringing a Dunsparce in itself is quite surprising. And, well, unfortunately it didn't necessarily do that much. It did have Thunder for Mantine, and it did have Ice Beam for Gligar, but, like, that being quad super effective moves, it still didn't do all that great damage. So, I don't necessarily think that Dunsparce is a good pick. I do think that you may want to, just trade that. Usually the only Dunsparce set I've ever seen was, like, a Thunder Waving Headbutt set. With the Serene Grace. So, but maybe he brought it with the Thunder, so it got a 60% chance to paralyze, so maybe that worked out in his favor. I don't necessarily know. But, I wasn't, well, yeah, Dunsparce was original, but didn't necessarily do that thing. Another note I had is that they sacked the right Mon, because at one point they had the second Mon versus the Tornadus. And I thought, well, they sent in Blaziken on a Heat Wave after Rachi dodged the first one, and I thought, well, Blaziken's probably Scarf then, so he can just click either High Jump Kick or Flare Blitz and take this thing out. But it turned out that it was just a sack, and I fully agree with the sack, because at that point he basically had to sack something, and Rachi had a way better matchup against his opponent's team than Blaziken would have had, because Blaziken probably lost, well, yeah, definitely lost against all the other things that Seattle Scissor at that point still had alive, and I don't think it could have beaten anything at all. So maybe even in general, Blaziken wasn't that good of a bring, but as a wall breaker could have probably done something. But all in all, it was just a really good battle on its own. Like this was probably one of my favorite battles to watch. This game, and everything came down to a Water Shuriken roll, which fell out into the Dallas Staryu's favor.
Yeah, probably the biggest reason we rated Survive a lot higher is because, well, for one, Survive definitely has a reputation of being a good coach, but also because winning against Drew is a pretty big win. He's our current reigning champion. Mm-hmm. So, it was a very close game, but that's also a pretty big way to start week 1 is beating the person who beat everyone last season.
So he went undefeated last season.
Oh, no, I just meant that he won out all of us.
Because that would be very impressive too. Well, in a 16-person league, you usually go undefeated. But okay, good. So
I almost did that. So close.
But well, you're number 5.
Our number 5 is Greg and the Los Angeles Clefables. So, I think it's a little bit weird to see Greg rated this low. I thought he had some pretty cool sets. I definitely like the Toxic Mega Lopunny.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm a little bit biased toward Mega Lopunny sets because I like seeing weird Mega Lopunny sets. Overall, it was pretty solid play. He definitely preserved what he needed to preserve, which was basically the Serena, and he got rid of the only threats to it. So I do think that he benefited a lot from some misplays on the Why Not's part, but overall his play was just really solid and his prep was really solid. There's not too much to critique.
No, overall it was a very solid game. Well, I mean, sacking the Talonflame there wasn't necessarily a great play, but, well, I mean, we'll get over that, right? So, moving on to the number 4 spot. My number 4 would be the Maryland Mienshao, because, well, I do think that it played a good game, well, first note was that they kind of stayed in unnecessarily, turn 1, with this little volley steal on something that'll likely pack fighting coverage, which was Thunder's Eye. In this case, it was super power, but usually it's Focus Blast. It's kind of standard on that mon. But what I did like about their play was that how Subcom Line Raikou just takes out a Mega Latios. The Mega Lati twins are probably one of the biggest threats in League format. I'm currently playing in a league myself, and we have banned the Mega Latis a couple seasons ago already because, well, we think them to be simply ridiculous in League format. Another thing, they set up with the Volcarona and then got critted by the Tapu Fini, which made the differential so much, well, less in their favor. So even though they won 1-0, I still have them in 4th spot because, well, they basically did just about everything right, even though I just commented on the first turn. But I didn't necessarily see that many switch-ins to the Thunder's Eye anyway. But overall, I think they just did really well. They got an unfortunate crit against, and that's why they didn't win 3-4-0-ish. But they just had a really solid game plan and executed it really well. And then it actually looked like the Barcelona Bagans were going to win out because of that crit. But then Pyukumuku was like, no, Mammoth Swine, you can't kill me. You can't do anything to me at all. So, and that's when Life Orb actually took down itself. I really did like seeing counter on Pyukumuku. Maybe that was some sort of a tech that he may have wanted to keep more of a secret for, well, future battles. But it was definitely an interesting bring, and I really, as you said when you were talking about the Maryland Mienshao, they really played their Pyukumuku well, just sending it in and baton passing out, basically gaining momentum every single time they brought in Pyukumuku.
It's also worth noting that they really had to, when they had Pyukumuku out against the Tapu Fini, I mean, it was just such a dangerous situation to be in that they really had to make the right plays. Or else they would have just lost the game. And to see them make all the right plays over and over, that takes quite a lot of skill to do, especially under pressure and especially maybe on a little bit of tilt from hacks. So that was just really fantastic toward the late game.
Yeah, their end game was really solid. So that's why I definitely put them at number 4. So your number 4?
Our number 4 is River and the Rosmal and Roserades. I think they're rated a little bit too high on this list. I guess there's not too much more to say. Again, they got a solid win. So we'll just have to see if they can then keep that up. I think the one reason I would put them a little bit lower is because of some of the odd prep choices or some of the odd choices on the opponent's part, like the no protect on Mega Dino, which could have potentially turned the tides a little bit, or at least brought down differential.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So, moving on then, since we already covered the Rosmal and Roserades, my number 3 would be the LA Clefables. I do think that they played a very, very solid game, despite them sacking the Talonflame. But, well, Talonflame, we all know in this gen isn't as good as we're used to seeing it. But despite, I didn't think they had the matchup at the start of the game, but they still ended up getting on top, and that was especially because a really, really good late game. Roserade put so much pressure on his team. It put the Magearna asleep, it killed the Talonflame, and it got free switch every single time on the Milotic. But still getting out on top, even after that much pressure, and even after such an unfortunate event with the Talonflame. I do think once again that he predicted an HP Fire or like a Giga Drain or something along those lines, but well, he just basically sacked his Talonflame to an offensive Roserade. But eventually, with all the power they have drafted on their roster, they just ended up bringing it home. Serena, which was their lowest tier pick, I think that they brought to this game, turned out to be the biggest win con after they had taken out everything that could really touch Serena. Serena, yeah, just basically won out the game for them, and that was really enjoyable to watch because I very much underestimated the bulk of Serena.
Yeah, one more additional note I have is, I think the Talonflame switch-in wasn't terrible, because, I mean, I do agree that they were probably predicting a Giga Drain or an HP Fire, but I don't think that Talonflame was going to be doing too much. It can't do a whole lot to either Kavagrigus or Togetic. You know, it's probably going to kill itself against the Snorlax, and it's not going to do much to Crocodile depending on the set. So I think that getting a free switch-in with something else might have been worth sacking the Talonflame. But I also don't
know what their Talonflame stat was, right? Because we didn't see anything. Yeah. Was it like a sword stance stat? Because Cofagrigus can't really touch Talonflame. I mean, you can't Wisp it to cut its damage, to cut its attack stat in half. So I do think it can beat Cofagrigus one-on-one. But that all depends on what set it was, but we couldn't see that.
Yeah, exactly.
So, your number 3?
Our number 3 is Survive 9 and the Dallas Daryus, who, again, we talked about a little bit earlier. I get why you didn't rate him as high because, you know, everyone's new to you. But the momentum going into week 2 after beating Drew has got to be pretty huge. Because Drew doesn't lose a whole lot. So we're probably going to see even better play in week 2 just because of the momentum from that week 1 win.
Yeah, I can see that happening. Once again, I'm just not too keen on the Dunsparce set, even though, well, I mean, it's just great seeing a Dunsparce being used, right? This league basically surprised me with the low tier picks, with the Walrein, with the Dunsparce. I've never seen people even consider those, but you know, seeing those do at least something, well, really gave me a good feeling. It was good for the heart, I guess. So, going on to our number 2 then, because our top 2 is exactly the same. Our number 2 would be the Hei-Kaluchas. The Hei-Kaluchas, they played their game really patiently against the New York Simipours, and, well, they basically had to sack their Emboar due to, well, somewhat of an unfortunate Spadef drop. But, I was kind of assuming on the New York Simipours and that Chandelure was kind of their switch into Emboar regardless, because the rest of the Mons basically got hit hard by either Flare Blitz or a Superpower, while Chandelure is immune to both. So, maybe, but just getting damage off of Chandelure was good. But they just played their game really patiently, and they set up with the Manaphy at the, well, right time, really, where Tail Glow plus C Rain Dance allowed them to just put a massive dent into the New York Simipours teams, enough where Necrozma could outstall the last Mon being Porygon 2.
Yeah, there's not too much to even critique on Mensa's part. I do think that I don't know if he had a good matchup or if he just brought a really good team, but his team definitely matched up pretty well against the Simipours. So I don't know if that's just him having a great matchup or if it's him prepping amazingly. I do think though that he played really patiently and that paid off for him. He just, like you said, he waited for the right time to set up with Manaphy. He had a choice to main Etrick at -2, and it was just, there's not much that Simipours could do to stop that.
Yeah, kind of just locking yourself into the overheat right there is just really dangerous, especially if you don't have anything for a +3 Manaphy. Especially not like that +3 Manaphy would also +1 speed. So, they kind of dug a grave. Yeah, they just dug a hole for themselves. But I don't think they could have done that much to stop it looking at their roster. So, I do just think that the Hei-Kaluchas just brought the exact right Manaphy set. for this game. Assuming there was a surplus energy ball for Vaporeon, but the opponent didn't even bring Vaporeon. So that was very unnecessary. I just everything with Surf. I did question why they didn't bring in a P2 first, because if something on their team, on the Singapore team, were to live a +3 Surf, then it would have been a P2. But as I said, I just expected it kind of to be offensive because it did really a lot to Necrozma. Necrozma is just super fast.
Yeah.
So I'll let you take the our number 1 then.
All right. So at number 1 we have Stybie and the Helsinki high jump kicks. So this one was, I wasn't quite sure how to rank because obviously his opponent didn't bring the greatest team, but the prep was just really outstanding on the high jump kicks part. I like people who throw toxic on their offensive mons to deal with certain walls, so I like the toxic Mega Manetric, though I do question why he switched out against the Lantern. There's not a whole much that Lantern can do to Mega Manetric, so I feel like staying in and either signal beaming or HP grassing, something like that, would have been a better play. But aside from that, there's
maybe
not too much.
All the coverage he had for it. Maybe he was like Thunderbolt, Volt Switch, Flamethrower, or something along those lines, right? So he couldn't even touch the Lantern on its own. So maybe that's why he switched out. I honestly don't know.
See, but on that note, that was probably the biggest problem I had with their prep, because Rest Talk Lantern is a fairly common set. So I think they needed something else besides Talk to hit the Lantern, but it didn't end up mattering. So can't hold that against them too much. But their prep for the Volt turn was just really good. They did an amazing job of preserving differential, and they just played around the Volt turn really, really well. So the Oriolus just couldn't do much.
No, I really also like their Paladin stat with the Rindoberry, because they couldn't necessarily do that much against Rotom Cut. Rotom Cut was a great threat against their team, and then just slapping a Rindoberry on your Palisand, even though it was, they just really kind of banked on the over prediction, because I still think Palisand would have gotten 2 ATO'd by 2 Leaf Storms. One limited by the Rindoberry and then the other one limited by the -2, but I still think that may have killed. I should have probably calculated that. But and the Helsinki high jump kicks really had their prediction patterns on, because they predicted the Lando to come back in, which was about to receive a wish, which gave them a huge amount of momentum. Getting Lando out of the game is just, it's as big in League format as it is on the OU ladder, I'd say. So this amazing threat out of the way. I really like Rocky Helmet Gara as well to just counter their Manatan. It was really nice. It was really creative. And then at one point he realized, okay, my opponent now knows that Gara is my switch into Darm. Darm is judging by the damage is Scarp. So he's got a Rock Slide here, and then he just at the exact right time he predicted the Rock Slide or an over prediction on the Baltimore Oriolus part, and then taunt Rocky Helmet Gyarados just put in massive amount of work against your opponent.
Yeah, he just really he made the plays that he needed to.
Mm-hmm.
The one other criticism I have, and it's very small, is that I think taunting the Wigglytuff was a little bit risky, just because of the massive coverage that Wigglytuff gets with things like Thunderbolt.
Yeah.
But I also understand that preventing rocks and preventing wishes was probably more important than saving the Gyarados. So he really just played exactly how he needed to get a huge win.
Exactly. If there was a downfall on this side, then it was probably the taunt on the Clefable, on the Wigglytuff. Sorry, both pink and annoying. But all in all, it was just a really well executed game. They prepped well, they played well, and they just really got the better of their opponent. And to be honest, it was a very well deserved 6-0.
Yeah, exactly. There's no heavy hacks or anything like that. It was just really good prep and really good play.
So, with that, I guess week 1 will come to an end. Next week, another coach will be joining me for these power rankings. I'm Socrates101, and I will see you guys next week.
See ya.